Which side? Morning. We are kicking off our Tuesday live. Hope you guys are having a good start to your week. We are going over desire and setting and achieving goals, setting goals worthy of you. I got kicked out of this, so I'm going to have to get back in. Life as we see it is really the production of the way we think, our level of awareness, and the level of intelligence that we have. So, the truth of the matter, there's one area that we can only go, and it's really going back to your intelligence and your level of awareness. The direct source is going to be your of awareness to even be aware, and then the intelligence that you need to organize and put together to a new definite end. Each and every one of us gets to the point where we've gone as far as what we know how to do. The only difference in people that are highly successful is the difference that they're ready and willing to go the extra mile. And the average individual, the average person is not willing to go beyond what they know how to do. And because they're not willing to go beyond what they know how to do, they remain exactly where they're at. Life just continues to flow, and they're living more or less mediocre lives, but they're really not living what they truly want. They're not living the way they truly desire to live. And something deep down inside each and every one of them really desires more. But the truth of the matter is they don't know how. And because they don't know how, they just stop. Now, if you're one of those individuals that's not willing to accept defeat, not willing to accept conformity, not willing to accept a simple, a normal, an average life, then you're going to need the material that's going to need to help you get out of that area. You need the material that's going to help you grow and expand your consciousness. You need to know really how the mind works. And in this lesson we're going to go over today, you're going to learn quite a bit of that. We've got a conscious, subconscious mind. And what we don't understand is that the subconscious is what controls what we do. And the average individual does what their subconscious tells them. And we're not aware enough to stop the train of thought. We're not aware, the average individual is not aware to how to control the flow. They're not aware of really how to take themselves from where they're at to something entirely new. And that's where we really need to grab a hold of ourselves. We really need to understand ourselves, because if we don't, we just fall back. If we had a material that could, if you knew that we had a material that could really take you beyond, you would take it and run with it. But there's some of you that do know that we have the material, but there's something inside that stops you. And this cybernetic mechanism is a control mechanism that controls your behavior. And a lot of you didn't know that you had a cybernetic mechanism. It was going to stop you right in your tracks. And what it's supposed to do is stop you from going too far out of your comfort zone, because you don't know how. And it's supposed to put you right back where you're supposed to be, because that's what you know how to do. So how do we get beyond this? One, being aware. Very first key. One, being aware. I'm going to put a video in here, and we have Bob discussing the self-image. and how when we're not aware, that self-image controls our behavior. And it's going to be a really great illustration. We got Scott Edwards coming on here. He's going to be talking about the self-image and how that self-image controls your behavior, and how so many of us really don't know what's controlling us. We really don't know. We think that it's us, but it's really your fears, your doubts, your worries, your habits, your behaviors in the background that are setting you up for a chain of thought and a train of thought. And I'm going to play the video, and then we'll come back to the lesson. And I want you to look for the lesson right at the very beginning, because Bob's going to teach Scott what he's been working on and teach him a very valuable lesson, that the self-image was already working in him before he showed up to run this program. It's a 1-hour shoot. So I'm going to get started here.
I went from chapter 1 to chapter 3. I think if you haven't got chapter 3 straightened out, number 2 isn't going to mean anything. You're just going to have a lot of information about money and execute none of it. Got to get it all right in here. You've got to see yourself as the person you want to be. Now you say, well, doesn't everyone? No, they don't. They see themselves as they are, and they don't particularly like it. And so what we want to do is show you how to change that and how to build the image of what you want, so you can begin living the life that you want to live. Now, my good friend and our studio director, Mr. Scott Edwards, has his shirt hanging out with a vest on.
Oh,
How the hell did you rig that up? Yeah, this guy's half dressed. Stand up. Come on, you got to show. Come on, I want you to see this. I want you to see this. Listen,
Look at this, guys.
He's got a shirt with a vest. And
I was in a rush. It's your fault.
Just because you're on television only sitting down, Scott, that isn't how you... Oh, the image. We're going to have to work on that. Oh. All right. Scott has done some phenomenal job in researching this, and I think everybody that's been on any length of time knows that. So he's going to show us some of the stuff that he used when he first started this.
All right, thanks, Bob. So this is my favorite chapter, and it's definitely the most important one, because I believe if you master the image maker, I think that everything else will take care of itself. You know, Ellen Nightingale one time said that we become what we think about. Now, Bob filled in the missing piece when he said, well, we think in pictures. So literally whatever picture we have, that's what we're becoming. It's what Bob's going to go into now is psycho-cybernetics. This is what the image maker is all about. It's all about psycho-cybernetics. We say in the book that we act, we behave, and we feel depending on the picture we're holding of ourselves. And Bob's going to explain right now in this video just how powerful that is. And we'll just skip over to the video now.
Now, at the top of page 23 is a quote that come out of Maxwell Maltz's classic Psycho-Cybernetics. Psyche being Greek for mind, cybernetics being the science of control and communication in our marvelous mind. Now, Maltz said, we act, we behave, and feel. Now, think of what we're talking about here. We act, we behave, and we feel. The vibration that we're in most of the time, according to what we consider our self-image to be. And we do not deviate from that pattern. This is the one stumbling block that many people have. Now, Maltz explained that the image you hold of yourself is a premise, a base, or a foundation. It's nothing but an idea in your mind upon which your entire personality is built. He concluded this image not only controls your behavior, yet controls your circumstance as well. Now, it would take a respectable understanding to grasp that. How could an idea in our mind literally change the circumstances in our life? Well, by the time you finish this seminar, the various subjects in it, you're going to know exactly how those circumstances can change. It'll be very clear to you. But I can assure you, you alter this image in your mind that John was talking about. You take this idea of what you want to be and learn how to plant it in here and release this idea. Like that, your life will change.
So I think the key to take away from that is just how powerful it is, because Bob was talking about we have this idea in our mind that we literally just can't see. There's a story as well. If you go into the back office and watch Born Rich on Born Rich number 3, DVD number 3 is the right DVD. There's a story about Paul Hutsey. Now, he had a goal for 22 years that he didn't achieve, and he had it for 22 years. Bob showed him how to change the image in his subconscious mind, and he literally achieved it straight away. It's a really good story if you go back and watch that. The reason he didn't achieve it is because his subconscious mind wasn't in alignment with the goal that he had. Now, this is the main key, is that most people try to force it. They try and force the goal. And what we have to understand is that we all have an old image in our subconscious mind. And Bob talks about just how powerful that old image is and the fact that we shouldn't ignore that.
You have an image here in your subconscious mind. Now, the first step in changing that picture is in your exercise book, your action planner on page 26. So often, as Paul mentioned to me, for 22 years, every year he promised he was going to get one of those citations, but he said, I never got it. Emerson said, of what use to make heroic vows of amendment if the same old lawbreaker is going to keep them? You see, Paul was trying to get that citation with the same old picture. And the only thing I suggested to Paul, and it didn't take long, was how to change the picture. And I said, you change the picture, Paul. And I said, your results will change so fast, you'll be shocked.
So the main thing there is not to fight it. You see, Bob said change the image. He didn't say fight the image. It's literally what Sandy talked about, building a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Now, so the next step is deciding what you want. Now, the main thing, this is the main thing I learned, is don't think about how, because when you think about the how, it blocks you. There's a lot of people, when we talk about the goals, they don't know what they want, and they usually do know what they want, but they won't allow themselves to want it because they think that they can't get it because they don't know how. So Bob talks about that now, and he talks about, don't think about how you're going to get it. We're not at that point yet. And he also talks about how to actually make a really good description of what you want.
I want to suggest that you sit down and you really think. Realize this power is flowing into you. As it flows in, we said it just is. It's without form. You make it what you want. And I'm suggesting that you build into your mind a picture of exactly how you want to live. Don't give any thought to how it's going to happen. We're not at that point yet. One step at a time. What kind of a person do you want to be? Where do you want to be in your commercial career? What kind of a financial position do you want to be in? I can tell you one thing with absolute certainty. When Paul got this idea, he was already winning. When John and I got it, we were miserable losers. And I know that if I can do it, anyone can do it. I've gone into prisons with this, and so has John. We've worked with people who are right down and out, the castaways. And we've watched them literally change their life just through these simple concepts. And so can you. But you've got to decide, how do you want to change it? You don't get the house by wishing. You decide, what kind of house do you want? Now, don't just build a picture of being a wealthy person. Ray Stanford first suggested I could change. That's all I was interested in. And I got it. Howard Hughes did too. But he ended up alone and lonely and in a very defiled body. Now, build an image of being happy, of being healthy, and of being wealthy. And I would suggest that you build into it the kind of an attitude that you want for everyone else, what you want for yourself. And your life will be absolutely incredible. Now, all you have to do is build this picture in your mind. When this lesson's over, I'm going to suggest you go somewhere quiet and do that.
So there's 3 points that I've made of everything that we've covered here, which I think are really important. Number one is that you need to understand how important it is, and that image is in your subconscious mind, whether you know about it or not. And it's responsible for all of your present results, the results that you want to change. So it's really important you understand that it's there. Number two, don't fight it or try to force anything. Number three, focus on what you want without thinking of how. So those are the 3 points that I think are really important. And I really believe if you master this, everything will take care of itself. It's what I work on every day, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what we have in Masterclass for this chapter. So I'm going to hand it back to Bob.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the very beginning. We're working with an image that's unseen. How tricky is this? The reason I want to bring it right back to the beginning, because we are seeing live action of this happening, of how we've got an image already inside of us that's already working for us. And the thing about it is that because we rarely look at ourselves, we rarely look inside, we rarely think about what we're thinking about. We rarely pay attention the feeling that we're having. Feeling is conscious awareness of vibration. We rarely regulate what we're feeling. We rarely think about what we're thinking about, and we rarely decide what we want to think about, and we rarely control the flow. Now, perfect illustration is right here. We're talking about the self-image, and Scott changed his self-image to get him to go work with Bob. He was only an image as a young man. He saw Bob and he wanted to work with Bob. So he started to hold the image he was doing that. So because he's holding the image he was doing that, he started to think of ways how he would work with him and how he would bring service and bring value. And so he did that. He was able to get himself to that point. Now, we see him wanting to get on camera, wanting to help, be a part of more. Maybe self-image he's holding now is wanting to work with Bob and teach with Bob. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gotten on the camera and he wouldn't position himself to get to that point. But what you do see is that Bob's standard is looking professional. And so here you have Scott wanting to come on camera, wanting to do these other things, but clearly his self-image is saying he really doesn't want that. So here he's getting dressed up and he's getting half dressed because he's performing and he's acting, but it's really not him. He's performing and acting to come on camera, but it's really what not is going on inside. So what's going on inside is the opposite. Otherwise, he would have been okay with wearing the suit. So how many times are we doing things and we're really not comfortable in them and we really don't want them? So that self-image is setting up a chain of events so that you don't become the person that you're saying you want to be. There's an image in your conscious mind, there's an image in your subconscious. The images in the subconscious will control your behavior. It's been controlling your whole life. You're just not aware of it. Why are you not successful? Because you haven't successfully understood this information yet. Why are you not successful? Because you don't understand that your success is already written in your subconscious mind. And if you don't train that, and if you don't rewrite that, that's what's coming. You felt it. We've all felt it, where we feel like we're fixing to break out of the norm. We're going to go somewhere new, and something pulls you right back in. You think you're fixing to get out of it, and something's trying to keep you back on track. That part that's trying to keep you back on track, that's a subconscious. That's a self-image. That's the fear, the doubts, and the worries. And if you stay there and you stay doing that, you don't break free. If we look at the way they train an elephant, they'll chain the elephant as an infant, and they'll chain him down. And then after a while, he's been programmed not to resist that chain anymore. He couldn't break free as an infant. And even though years later he towers over the thing, you could tie him to a chair and he wouldn't move. Much like many people around the world, they're tied to this invisible chair. They're tied to these invisible ideas. And because they don't understand the psychology behind belief and behavior, they don't understand that their mind, their intelligence, is taking them on the plan that they're supposed to be on. And all their dreams and wishes that they had will never happen because they were not supposed to. Not for that self-image. I'm going to rewind this. I want you to take a look at it.
And execute none of it. Got to get it all right in here. You've got to see yourself as the person you want to be. Now you say, well, doesn't everyone? No, they don't. They see themselves as they are, and they don't particularly like it. And so what we want to do is show you how to change that and how to build the image of what you want so you can begin living the life that you want to live. Now, my good friend and our studio director, Mr. Scott Edwards, has his shirt hanging out with a vest on.
Oh,
How
you
the
can
hell
tell
did
him
you
that.
rig that up? God, this guy's half dressed. Stand up. Come on, you got to
tell
show.
him
Come
that.
on, I want you to see this. I want you to see this. Listen,
Look at this, guys.
he's got a shirt with a vest, and
That was a rush. It's your
you
fault.
see, just because you're on television only sitting down, Scott, that isn't how you. Oh, the image. We're gonna have to work on that. All right, Scott is.
The image, we have to work on that. Scott he's not even aware that there's an image work inside of him. We are walking around all day long and we don't understand that there's an image already working inside of us. Here in a minute, you guys are fixing to go do what you would normally do after the period of watching this. You guys are going to go right off and go do what you're taught to do. Because there's a self-image already working inside of you, telling you what to do, telling you how to live, telling you what you are, and you really don't like it, but you don't know how to change it. Here he's talking about money, talking about going to do different things, talking about going after a goal. But if you don't work on your self-image, your program's going after the goal. Your old self-image is going after the goal. Your old habits, behaviors are going after the goal. The old you, if you don't change the old you, you're going to be faced with something that it's unseen. You're going to be faced with something that's unseen. We act, we behave, and we feel as we are. That's said, but so misunderstood. We act, we behave, and we feel as we are. That's how a majority of people give up. They don't know of anything more. They never change the intelligence. And if you never change the intelligence, you are all you'll ever be. We act, we behave, and we feel as we are. Majority of people never truly learn that there's so much more. They think I know I'm not that. I can never be that. I know I'm not that. So I can never have that. But it's so misunderstood. Because if you really truly knew, if you truly knew who you really are, you're not even that. Your spiritual DNA is perfect. And that's what we miss. There's a higher side of you that's perfect. And it's a side that's telling you you're so much more. And there's a lower side of you that's telling you this is all you've got. There's a higher side of you saying we could have a better life. And a lower side of you saying we could never be that. You see, there is an idea of yourself inside of yourself that you cannot see. There's a part of you inside of yourself that talks to yourself that you cannot see. That's a self-image. And then if we get out and try to do something, we're normally trying to force it. We're trying to force it because we don't really believe that we can do that to begin with. The old self-image is trying to work at something that it knows it's not. The self-image is trying to get out and be somebody it knows it's not. That self-image is going out to try to create something that it shouldn't be creating because it doesn't have the right mindset. But that's not the key. The key is about being aware that you're aware that there's already an image working inside of you. And if you don't change the image controls your behavior. If you don't change the image is thinking with its perception, with its beliefs, and it's setting up a chain of events for you. You ever heard of self-sabotage? That's what I've got. You don't have self-sabotage. You have a self-image, and you're trying to go beyond what that self-image knows how to do. The sabotage is a result of trying to go beyond what it is. The sabotage is the result of trying to go beyond what your self-image truly is. Truly understand this. You never heard of somebody self-sabotaging what they know how to do, have you? You never heard of somebody self-sabotaging what they know how to do, because they already know how to get that right. They're not going to sabotage that. They can do that day in and day out. They can perform. We're all performers. Every one of us is performing. What are we performing? We're performing according to our self-image. And when it comes to performing your self-image, you got that down pat. It's when you're trying to go outside of the realm of the possibilities of that intelligence, of that intellect, those perceptions and those beliefs that you self-sabotage. That's what they call a divided mind. Do it, don't do it. Have it, don't have it. I can do it, I can't do it. Also, what they use that word called sin. But the truth of the fact is, you're perfect. What do we need to do? Rewrite the self-image. What kind of person do you want to be? You have to decide. What kind of person do I truly want to be? Let's look at education. Education knows that you got a program inside of you. They're teaching the same information, but they do it through schooling. But yet, they really don't teach you the rest of the information. They give you ideas of what kind of self-images you could walk into, and then they tell you how much they can earn. And then you go off and do that. So you go to college, you go through high school. Every year, for 12 years, you're auto-suggesting over and over for a whole year You go to the same class and you repeat the same thing till you get the new memory, till you can what? What? Reprogram. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, until you finally penetrate your subconscious mind, till you finally got it and you can repeat. Reprogram, repeat what you've learned. So they give you a memory to the point to where you can repeat it. But they never teach you how to gather that information and specialize it to earn money. You get a whole bunch of information, but not enough to really take you anywhere. They don't show you how to apply it. Then you get to college and they teach you, again, how to program, how to step into a mode, how to give service. And they tell you, according to these different self-images, they tell you, what do you want? Who do you want to be? But you got to choose from these. And as you begin to choose, they also tell you how much income, more or less, you're going to be earning, so that you can see, so you can build cells of recognition, so that you can understand the way your lifestyle will be. Why? Because everything in the physical world is paid for. Everything. If you don't want to get an education, you don't want to go to school, then you've got to learn it all on your own. And if you don't get that piece of paper, then you don't get to step into that self-image. And you don't get to earn what that person earns. But the truth of the matter, that doesn't matter either. How many people have you seen that have gone beyond their education? Do you know that 97, 98% of people, even the educated ones, are stuck? Do you know that only 1% are doing over $500,000 a year? Only 0.5%. How is that possible all over the world to get into earning $500,000 a year annually? You're only, I believe it's 0.5%. That means everyone else is falling down. Everyone else is falling down. Where do they fall down? They really don't get much more. Economic system, average income, 50,000, 60,000. 80% doing that of everyone in the world. How is that possible? And when you go to the average income, they're living off of an average $50,000, $60,000 a year. And then whenever you look at the larger spectrum and you go lower and lower and lower, the percentage of people that are really earning, really living the way they want to live, it's very slim. You think that's an accident? How many people are earning over $300,000 a year? Very few. You see, we're working with an image. And if we don't change the image, we are all we will ever be. What kind of person do you want to be? You have to decide how you want to live. You have to decide what you're going to change. What do you want to change? It's so important to be aware. And if you're not aware, you miss the lesson. I'm going to come back here.
When he played the Paul Hutsey part there, or mentioned it, Scott mentioned it, my mind went right back to that. We were in the Hyatt Hotel in Toronto, and Paul was a manager out of Kansas City. Where was it in Kansas? in no, he wasn't in Pittsburgh, Kansas then. That's where he went to. But at any rate, he was in Kansas, down in Kansas, and he was, he called, after I spoke, he came over and he said, "Can I spend about 15 minutes with you?" I said, "Sure." So anyway, we went up and sat just inside the door of the coffee shop at the Hyatt Hotel, which is gone now. The Hyatt's not the Hyatt anymore. It turned into condos or something. But at any rate, we were sitting there, and I tell the story in the book. Charlie Beck and Dick Merrill, the senior VP and the vice president of sales out of Houston, come in, and they come over and congratulated Paul on his year. Paul was a manager. And when they left, Paul said, now they were sincere. He said, I do a good job. He said, I'm a good man. He said, I've been with the company 24 years. I've been in management most of that time. And he said, you know, the company gives out an award for the top 50 districts in the company. They give a citation. And he said, I would like to think I could get one before I retire. I said, Paul, he said, I've been working at this for 24 years. I said, Paul, I can show you how to do that in about 15 minutes. Now, while Scott was talking, my mind went right back there. And I was wondering, how did that sound to him? He was really a solid guy. I mean, you would hire this guy in a heartbeat. And he's been working hard for 24 years wanting to get a citation. And I'm sitting there and I said, Paul, I can show you how to do that in about 15 minutes. How would that sound to him, I wonder? Well, I'll tell you how it sounded. He got back to Kansas. They had different territories come in. They'd have one territory come in and it would go out and another one would come in. So I was working in Toronto at the Hyatt for about, I don't know, a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that, handling each region that come in. But at any rate, he got back and he phoned me. He said, where are you working next week? And I said, I'm going to be in Litchfield, Illinois. When I leave here, that's where I'm going. He said, could I meet you there? And I said, yeah, if you want. So he came over to Litchfield, Illinois. I was working with Prue. And he sat in the seminar all day. Then he rode with me up to Chicago. And he stayed with me for 3 days. And then he went back to Kansas. Do you know, 1 year later, he had the #1 territory in commissions earned in the entire company. And he did that, he had moved after that to Pittsburgh, Kansas. 60% of the people in Pittsburgh, Kansas have an income below the poverty level. It's a very poor area. It's a small place. Pittsburgh, Kansas is a very small place. Paul Hutsey proved that it doesn't matter where you are in geography, it matters where you are here. Paul and I remained friends for many, many years. He's one of the few people, I very rarely ever stayed at anyone's home when I was on the road. I stayed at his home. His and John Ashraf, the only two people I ever stayed in their home. But I stayed at his home. I got to know his wife and family, and just a phenomenal guy. He changed that entire company with what he did, because they all started to follow him. Now, I want you to think for a moment. I'm going to ask you to, if you've got your book, turn back to page 22. Now, on page 22, we have thoughts, spirit, ideas, intellect, and then thing, physical. Well, let's look at this, and we'll say this represents thoughts. Okay, there's all kinds of thoughts. It's an energy, really, and we just make thoughts out of the energy. But there's also thoughts floating around. Now, I want you to imagine for a moment that you're going to build a new house, and you're going to design the house. You're going to call the shots on it. You're not an architect, so you're really not going to do the detailed design, but you're going to tell the architects exactly what you want. I want this, I want that. And you're going to get that picture very clear. I'm in the midst of doing this right now with the house I'm living in. They're putting a top floor on. They're raising the roof. What they're doing is adding 2,500 square feet on the top of the house. Now, to do that, they have literally wrecked the house. They have demolished the house. But working with the designers, we want this, we want that, and we choose and we build the kind of picture of the kind of house we want to build. And you get that pretty much in detail. Do you know that's exactly what you can do with your life? You are a spiritual being. Spirit is omnipresent. There's a part of you that is omnipresent. It's 100% evenly present, all places at the same time. Now, most people really don't relate to that. We've been programmed to live through our senses, and so we see the physical world, we look at our physical body, and we think this is it. This is nothing but the expression of who we are. You are a spiritual being. There's a part of you that's equally present in all places at the same time. And then, unlike all the other forms of animal life, you have been gifted with an intellect. You live in a physical body, so do the squirrels and the deer and the bears. They too are spiritual beings, and they live in a physical body. This is what they lack. They don't have an intellect. They do not have an intellect. You do. And you can use that intellect to sit down and decide on what kind of a person do you want to be. How do you really want to live? No one else has got anything to do with this. This is strictly in your own backyard. You've got to do it. There's no one can do it for you. As much as somebody that loves you dearly wants to do it for you, they can't do it. You got to do this. This is a deal that you've got to do all on your own. Now, I want you to think. Keep thinking about this for a moment. Here's your marvelous mind. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull this spirit in here in the form of thoughts, and we're going to build a picture of our life. And we want to build that picture in as much detail as possible. How we walk, how we talk, how we dress, how we meet and greet the people, what kind of work we do, where we do it, how we do it, what kind of money we earn, how we want to live, right down to the finest detail. You want to build the image in here. Now ask yourself this. Are you getting the results of the image that you'd like to have? Odds are the answer is no. And why is that? It's because most people know absolutely nothing about this. Do you know, when Maxwell Maltz wrote his book, I never had the pleasure of meeting Maxwell Maltz, and I feel bad because I could have. I was selling a seminar for him when he died. I was in Chicago, and he was going to do a seminar in Milwaukee. So I was selling it to a bunch of the people I was working with. I wanted to go there and see him, meet him, and he passed away. So I missed him. Anyway, Maxwell Maltz was a cosmetic surgeon. He would do reconstructive surgery. Let's suppose a person had a very distasteful scar on their face. I worked with a young lady. Her name was Lorraine. I was working in a factory. I'd just come out of the Navy, and I was in this factory, and she had a scar from her ear right around to the corner of her mouth. I have no idea how she got it, but she would always be talking like this. It obviously bothered her. Outside of the scar, she was an absolutely beautiful looking woman, fairly young, but she always had her hand up. That scar really bothered her. Well, Maltz would take a person like that, and he would remove the scar. And he found that sometimes when he did it, there was a phenomenal change in them physically, but there was also a phenomenal change in them from a psychological perspective. They were like a different person. But he found that only happened sometimes. Sometimes when you remove the scar, there would be a great change. Sometimes you remove the scar, no change. And that led him to postulate that we must have two images. We've got one that everybody looks at. That's the one we dress up and present to the world. But that isn't the self-image. That's a physical image. But we've got another one in here. Now think of this. What image are you holding? I'm going to tell you something. It controls your income. It controls the kind of home you're going to live in or the kind of house you might build. It controls the kind of vacations you take. It'll control whether you're staying in some kind of a hostel or you're staying in a 5-star hotel. It'll state what kind of places you may go to eat, where you buy your clothes, what kind of an automobile you might drive, what kind of a job you're doing. This controls everything in your life. And hardly anyone understands it. It's almost hard to grasp that something this important wouldn't be taught to children. But it's not. Look on, it controls the kind of home you're going to live in or the kind of house you might build. Another one in here. Led him to postulate that we bothered her.
Okay, so when we look at this and we listen to what Bob's saying, he's talking about we've got two images. And the one that we show to the world is our conscious mind. But the one that we act on is in our subconscious mind. The one that's in your subconscious mind is what controls your behavior. That image is controlling your life. Somebody can say, I'm going to, and they don't do it. I want, and they really don't act like it. I will, and they don't do it. Why? Because every time you're trying to go beyond what you already are, your self-image steps in. Are you getting the results you want? Ask everyone around today, are you getting the results you really want? Majority will probably tell you. They'll gather their own ideas, they'll put them together, and they'll probably say, no, I'm really not. Ask anyone, just walk around today, are you living the way you want to live? Are you truly getting the results that you want? Ask them how long they've been doing what they've been doing. If your way's not working, why don't you try ours? I know everybody needs this information. I still need this information because I'm not living the way I want to live. I keep upgrading and I keep choosing to go in a different direction. I keep choosing my fate. I'll look back at the end of the days, and when I do and it's time for me to go, I'll look back and I know that I created this. I'll look back one day, and when it's time for me to leave, I will look back and I will see how great it is because I created this. I chose. I chose. I painted images. I decided what life would look like. I created the circumstances when I didn't see them. When you look back and you ask people, look to yourself. Am I truly living the way I truly want to live? You can gather all that information. You're going to go back to the source. And you'll know that you're really not living the way you really want to live. You're going to say no. We have two pictures. One that we represent to the world and one that's going on inside. The one that's going on inside. The one that is you. If you don't change that you don't change the results.
And he found that sometimes when he did it, there was a phenomenal change in them physically, but there was also a phenomenal change in them from a psychological perspective. They were like a different person. But he found that only happens sometimes. Sometimes when you remove the scar, there would be a great change. Sometimes you remove the scar, no change. And that led him to postulate that we must have two images. We've got one that everybody looks at. That's the one we dress up and present to the world. But that isn't the self-image. That's a physical image. But we've got another one in here. Now think of this. What image are you holding? I'm going to tell you something. It controls your income. It controls the kind of home you're going to live in or the kind of house you might build. It controls the kind of vacations you take. It'll control whether you're staying in some kind of a hostel or you're staying in a 5-star hotel. It'll state what kind of places you may go to eat, where you buy your clothes, what kind of an automobile you might drive, what kind of a job you're doing. This controls everything in your life. And hardly anyone understands it. It's almost hard to grasp that something this important wouldn't be taught to children. But it's not. Look on, go over on page 47. There's a story on page 47, and oddly enough, this goes back many, many years, but I can remember this very clearly. Doing this seminar, I was in Ohio, doing a seminar, and a man stood up in that seminar, and he said, you know, I've read about this over the years. It was with one of the insurance companies I was working with. But he said, I'm 65 years old, and this is the first time I have understood this. Now, at that time, I would be, I don't know, 38, 40. 65 seemed very old to me. I've since changed my perception on that. But I thought, how could a person go for 65 years and not understand this? But when I really think about it, most people go their whole life and they never really understand this. I want you to think, really think about this for a moment. I'm going to put some slides on here for a minute. Put some PowerPoints on, okay?
65 years, never knew what was working inside of him. How many years do you have? We don't realize what's working on inside of us. We're getting closer to time, but we do this every day. We do this on purpose. We had a vision to help a lot of people. We got a vision, we're working that vision. And we have a vision to be global and to leave these institutes of the mind for people around the world. Why? Because we know that there's something already inside of us. There's something in you, it's in me, it's in each and every one of us, and it's a self-image. It is an idea. Little children walking around all day, being programmed all day long to act and behave as their environment. Family members will raise them. They don't even know that after 5 to 7 years of age, that program's already been input. And if you don't go back in to upgrade, that child's life is more or less gone as far as it's going to go. We have a conscious mind. That's your intellect. You have a subconscious mind. And then you have the body. Body. This thing is the instrument of the mind, and it feels. Well, you and I really need to get a really, really good understanding that we move this power. We do it. With what? Our will. But see, a lot of people get this wrong. A lot of people think we have free. We move it with our will. A lot of people think that we have free will. And this is so misunderstood, because free will means that you truly understand you're a spiritual being living in a physical body. Free will means that you truly understand that you are a spiritual being living in a physical body. Now, a lot of people say they know this, but they don't act it out. They say they know this, but they don't know they have two images. They say they know this, and they're living their life. But the truth of the fact is, they're living a program. Because the physical body only does what the mind tells it to do. And a lot of people say, well, I've got free will. Do you really? Well, why is it every time you try to go beyond what you are, you can't do it? Because there's a program in you. Why is it every time you try to go beyond what you know how to do, you get stuck? Because there's a program in you. A lot of people don't know is that this program is what is thinking. We got a mind, and we live in a body. We have a mind, and we live in a body. And we use our will. But the will is not your ability to force yourself to do something. The will is your ability to select images. And the average individual does not understand that he thinks in secret and it comes to pass. I say it again. They don't understand how the mind works. And they don't understand that the subconscious is what rules the body. The subconscious mind tells the body what to do. The subconscious is the doing part. The subconscious body tells the body where it's going to go. Every time you try to go beyond what you know how, this thing kicks on and says, nope, you don't know how to go there. You're not that. Who do you think you are? And so you fall right back into the plan. Whose plan? A lot of people don't know that they already had a plan. They don't understand that their will, free will, has already been selected. I'm going to go back to the will. A lot of people say, well, the creative force gave us free will. Yes, it did. But you normally don't go there. What is will? Will is truly your ability to select the images that you desire. But the majority of people never get this right. They normally select their will, their mind is already pre-selecting the images that are in this wheelhouse. Because the average individual does not understand the mind and how it works. The mind keeps thinking about and the only thing that it could think about is the ideas in its own mind. In its own mind. This is your ID. Identity. And this identity is your intelligence. Your intellect. right here. And if you don't go beyond that, this tells the body what to do. Right on purpose, right on time, every time. We say we have free will, but you never really go there. And even and when you do go there to select an image you have no clue of how to do, you reject it. Your subconscious rejects it. So your will, you take this power, even though this power could produce any result in your life, you normally keep selecting the images from your identity that you identify yourself with. That's the error. Who do you identify with? Your identity. You identify with your identity. Your identity has set up a character. And your character has already produced a what? Personality. And the personality keeps thinking from the same place, keeps doing the same things, and it uses its free will by selecting the same images over and over and over and over again, thinking something else is going to change outside of them. And here they live in the physical world, and here they have results all around them. The car they chose, self-image. The house they live in, brought together from their self-image. The amount of money they earn, self-image. Their people, friends, family members, the people they enjoy being around with, guess where they came from? Their self-image, because they make them feel good to be around them. This person doesn't know that its whole life, this man saying 65 years old, was in his world. He already had an image in his subconscious. He didn't know that that image was producing ideas inside of him. Before you speak, I hear you. Before you speak, I hear you. He didn't know that there was ideas already in him and telling him where to do and where to go, and he can never break out. He gets dropped right back in to what he knows how to do. Now, you're in here, you're listening to this, clearly understand that there's a different way, and we teach that different way. This class is all week long, and we're teaching how to reprogram the subconscious mind, how to truly use your free will, how to truly rewrite your life and redesign it. Get invested in you. Nobody else will. Nobody else can. Nobody can change you. You are all you've got, and you are all you could ever be. Make a choice. Make a decision right now, right where you're at, with whatever you have, and invest in you. It's a great thing when you really truly understand that you've got your power back and you got it right now. You've always had the power. You just didn't know how to do it. Everybody have a blessed day.